What is cloud-based infrastructure and where is the future headed or taking us? Cloud infrastructure refers to virtual infrastructure that's delivered and accessed via network or through the internet. Usually refers to on-demand services or products being delivered through a model known as infrastructure as a service, a basic delivery model of cloud computing. So what is cloud computing? Some of the terms, software as a service, examples, G Suite, Office 365, Adobe Creative Cloud, Zoho. There's a few others. I've been a user and administrator of G Suite for many years since it was in beta. I was one of the first users to sign up for it because I thought it would be pretty cool to check out. I thought it had a really good future at the time. Now they've really exploded on the scene with a lot of Office-like components. I've done evaluations in previous jobs between Office, Microsoft Office, and Google. Didn't find a lot of differences. It was mostly user familiarity and the web-based components that people didn't care for. But now that has changed. They have applications now to install. You can use their services. So again, software as a service is not necessarily just cloud-based. It could be any software that you rent. You don't pay for, you don't have the license. So if you stop paying for it, it goes away. Office 365 is a great example of kind of the hybrid, and that's gaining immense popularity because buying a license for Office is around $200, where you can get pretty good licensing from Microsoft at $10 a month to rent the software basically and keep on getting updates and never have to buy it again. They take care of all the technical support, that sort of thing. So those are gaining in popularity. Zoho, CRM systems, Salesforce, that sort of thing is all software as a service. The other one is infrastructure as a service, and that's really Azure, AWS, Amazon Web Services, Google Drive, Dropbox, that sort of thing. Is basically it's infrastructure as a service. Basically, you can get servers now for any shape and flavor that you used to build on in your location. You can now do through Amazon, and they do a really great job. It's quick. You can build it in seconds. It really started off with the company I'm working at currently. We have a lot of server farms that just run with either ZenWare or with a virtual VMware that allows us to build infrastructure fairly rapidly. This takes that a step further. I mean, I built a Amazon server back a couple weeks ago, and it only took a matter of seconds to set up the server, and it had Windows on it or Linux. Then you just set up the rest of the infrastructure and do it. And it really is a free service for the smaller pieces, so it's something you can just sign up for and just mess around with, learn. And it's a really good learning tool especially for PMs that you don't want to go buy servers anymore, because that's what I did back 15, 20 years ago. I just bought a server and played around with it. Now I can build a ton of them if I want to and go play around with them and delete them when I'm done with them, so I can learn the ins and outs of the infrastructure. There's also a couple different things that you can do that companies do nowadays with the cloud infrastructure. You have on-prem and off-prem. On-prem, basically, you build the cloud infrastructure in your own data centers. This is done in highly regulated industries like healthcare and the finance sector, where they can't, due to financial regulations or HIPAA, put those services outside their own premises because they don't own them. But Google and Microsoft will come in and install them for you, and it's pretty much the same thing, except everything's on-premise. So, where is this taking us? Consulting. Traditional project management, even Agile, doesn't work quite the same for cloud-based because the customer really can just do it themselves. While they want it, they don't understand how to make it work for them. They understand they can build servers, they can do different things, but they don't understand the limitations and the other things they need to do. Some of the other things that we offer are installation services. A lot of times where we can spin up these infrastructures very quickly. They run into problems when they're installing with permissions, a whole bunch of myriad of issues. That's when your team would step in and also assist them to do that. So instead of just building a server and tossing it over the wall, you're now more a collaborative approach where we're going to go in and assist them to get those pieces completed. A prime example would be we would have these activities called build parties, where we would actually plan the work that we're going to have done, and we would get together with them, and they would build their software, and then install it, and we would be there with them in case there was any issues that arose, because delay, is a very costly thing. If they can't get this fixed, then have to get our time, and it creates more delay. This way, you're there at the same time. Those are some of the services that you can offer as a project manager. Also, break fix. They're having problems. You schedule time for that as well. How much do they get? A lot. 9 times out of 10, they build too little because they think they can get away with it and they can spin it up quickly. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it requires a lot more engineering to get the new infrastructure to work. And they always size it inappropriately, like I said, and you will be there to pick up the pieces and help them size it properly, get all the firewall rules, all the other little things taken care of that they usually don't think of. So what do we need to know about it as project managers? The world's changing, and you need to change with it. You need to study up on new technologies, and you got to be a fairly good expert on it, at least enough that you can speak to it and get those things done. And embrace the change. Don't resist it. Fighting it will just make you a dinosaur, and you'll be gone. That's just the reality of IT nowadays. Is you always have to keep up. There's always something new. New technologies come along every day. You need to stay on top of those, read about them. Like I said, sign up for all the free services that you can to learn and to build servers, learn how to do it, mess it up. It's not going to hurt anybody. And that's kind of what we need to do going forward. Really, it is consulting. You're going to consult them, help them, and guide them. You won't be delivering the same types of infrastructure that was done in the past. So one of the questions that came up was several certified project managers with no hardware experience, and how can you get more technical? Number one, a part-time job doing IT support is a freaking great way to do it. Plus, you make a little cash. You get trained and you learn. That was always a good way that I did it. I started off in the technical manner and moved over, but I've always kept part-time gigs to stay technical, because unless you have a good incentive to do it, reading about it is not the same as doing it. Sign up for Google Suite, get an Office 365 account, play around in there, set up things, learn how all that works. There's tons of documentation and how it's done. That's some of my best advice, is to actually do it. Build servers, install software on it, see what happens, break it. Spend half an hour, 45 minutes a day just futzing around with different types of technologies, and then doing it. Reading about it is one thing, physically doing it is another. I know lots of guys that can spout out a lot of information about those services, but they don't know how to fix it, and that's the big thing. Google's right there. You don't really need to know a ton of detailed knowledge on it. You need to be a generalist, and then be able to search it and be confident enough to go in there and go work on these systems as you're learning how to do it, because that's the best way to learn. Learning is the best way to learn this stuff. Really is to troubleshoot and fix it. That's my best advice, is really to get a part-time gig of some sort that you do the actual work itself. That'll pay off in huge dividends, because every single interview I've been on in the past 5 years in my industry, if you don't have technical experience, they don't want you anymore. They want people who have hands-on. They'll even take people without degrees that have been doing project management that have the technical background, because you really do need to know what you're delivering. ITIL. The definition from ITIL from Wikipedia is an acronym for Information Technology Infrastructure Library. It's a set of detailed practices for IT service management, ITSM, that focuses on aligning IT services with the business needs. I can't stress enough. You really need to know this. It's very important for an infrastructure PM. ITIL defines how you bring a service live. It defines what the service levels are, and it defines everything. So right in the beginning of the project, you've got to get the ITIL people involved, so you can find out what the disaster recovery plan is. Then you can design the infrastructure to meet what the business needs are. Also, the ITIL really helps. It creates kind of toll gates of things you need to do before a system goes live, and it also sets forth a lot of control and a lot of structure around a go live event, because I can't tell you how many times at a smaller company that really didn't have this lockdown, where you bring something live and it's live and it crashes because someone went in there and did something you didn't know about it. ITIL develops change controls, creates the processes for bringing servers online. Typical ITIL regulations usually means you have to have a dev, test, stage, and production. Those three things, you have to go through those in order. Once you hit stage, you make those systems available. Everything requires a change control after that. That keeps everybody informed who needs to do what work when. It solidifies the plans for implementation. How do you back out if something goes wrong, and who you contact and who you bring in if there is a problem, and it ensures those people are on call. So there's no scrambling for resources, none of that, because everybody knows when this is a planned event. It's a change. You're going to bring a server online. You're going to bring a service online. You need Oracle people. You need business people. You need all the different people there. The change control process allows for those people to be notified and approved. So there's no, oh, I didn't get that email. There's none of that. You implement a system. Usually we use HP Service Manager that documents that people know that they're supposed to be there, supposed to do a certain task. The tasks are very well defined, and the backup plans are there, as well as disaster recovery and what happens if there's an outage. That's another very important thing, especially when you have applications that are critical. Email, claims processing, instant messaging, those critical infrastructure services that need to be online at all times. You have to be very formal on how that is taken care of. And I think that when you go along and you look at these items, it really is, it's kind of a pain, but when things start going south, and I've been in organizations where you don't have this, you don't know who did what, you can't get people, you're down, and it's a huge problem. I'll give you an example. I worked for a company that did infrastructure for police departments, and I would go on site to Alaska, and I'm bringing the server online, and I'm doing it in Alaska time, and there was a problem, and I couldn't call anybody, couldn't get anybody. Hours were by. Police couldn't run plates, they couldn't do anything because we had a system outage, because we didn't have the proper controls in, that when I said that this is going to go live at 5 p.m. local time, that people were on standby on the East Coast that would be able to support me as it went live. So that's why it's really important. I mean, that's a life and death kind of thing. I mean, they have radios, I get that, but still, it's an officer safety issue, and it should have been done. We should have had better ITIL structure to make sure that occurred properly. So, to kind of wrap up things here. So I think that looking at how things have changed since I first started as a project manager to nowadays, it's night and day. When I first started, most of the project managers that I worked with were right out of college doing project management. They didn't have the technical expertise, and that's what I was brought in to do. I was a system integrator. That's where I started in this journey. As cuts started happening in the 2000s, they found out that they could train me to be a project manager, to be able to handle those duties as well as my own. That also helped me get my technical chops to be able to do this work, hands-on, working with customers, working with clients, working with all those things to make myself a successful project manager. Every time that I see something changing, I embrace the change and move towards it. Law enforcement was the way it was back right around before 9/11. 9/11 hit. A lot of funding disappeared from there, so I looked for the next big thing, went to healthcare. Now within the healthcare realm, I start looking at, okay, we're looking at doing Agile. So instead of fighting with the Agile, I just embraced it and went with it. And a lot of infrastructure PMs do not like the Agile method because it is very different. But we did adapt it very well to infrastructure deliverables, and it's worked phenomenally for what we do. You know, going forward, again, I can't stress enough getting your technical abilities up to par to being not quite an engineer, but pretty darn close. And you can do that. It's fairly easy nowadays. The tools are all there. It's not like 15 years ago when you had to go buy the equipment. It was an expensive proposition. 99% of the stuff is free. You can do most of the Gmail suite things you can just do right from a regular Gmail application. And there's nothing wrong with doing a few bucks a month to get their domains. You can buy a .info domain on GoDaddy.com for $1, and you can then tie that to your Google account. You learn a ton of information just doing that activity right there, because you would learn how that all works, and you can blow the whole thing up and do the same thing with Office 365, and to learn how that's done, how to change DNS records. It's not that hard. And if you're doing it on your own, you don't care if you mess it up. You can delete it and put a new one in. It's nothing that you do will break anything irreparably. And if you can't figure it out, that's the help desk for those companies are for. You just call them. And again, it's a learning experience. The only way you learn things is to break it. Once you've broken it, you learn a lot. So don't be afraid to try to do that. I think that's the number one takeaway, I think, from here to being a technical PM is really to embrace the technical aspects. Go out there, go experiment. Don't be afraid to break things. Other than that, I think that, looking at the Agile technologies and the Agile methods would be a really good thing to take a look at and embrace that as well. I know it's not quite the same as traditional PM work, but I think that would really do you really good to get that done. And in closing, I really enjoyed doing this. I learned a lot having to put these things on paper. But again, don't be discouraged. Do what you can, and have fun. If you're not having fun, there's no point. Find ways to have fun. That makes it a lot easier.